Who here has heard about vibe coding before? Or like, all right. So who here hasn't heard about vibe coding? So basically, vibe coding, just to put it in simple words, is just a term for you to communicate with the AI and code an application without, going and looking at the actual code that is happening underneath. So we have a lot of vibe coding tools out there. I'm gonna pull up the other slides. Okay, all right. So we have a lot of vibe coding tools out there right now, today, that we can use. So we have Firebase Studio, we have V0 from top to right, we have Base 44, Lovable, Bolt, Make, Figma Make, Replit, GitHub Spark, etc. There's a lot of new tools coming up. In fact, GitHub Spark just came out 2 weeks ago, so it's the new kid in the block. But yeah, so today we're gonna focus on V0. And the reason we're focusing on the V0 today is because I come from the technical side and also from the design side of things, right? So I've used many of these tools already. And from my perspective, V0 is perhaps one of the most vertical integrated tools out there. So what I mean by this is that they sort of created the platform with design in mind, but also keeping in mind the engineering side, right? So if I start a project in V0, I can download it on my laptop and keep working on it and then push in a different branch and V0 will do the same on the platform. And we'll see it in a few also. But that's the main reason we chose V0 for this event specifically. Now we can use other tools in the future as well for other events, but yeah, so I just wanted to explain what this was about. First, I'm going to level down a little because I know there's a lot of technical concepts coming your way. So I'm going to try to make sure that everything is already laid out. So we have a few different concepts that we're going to talk about all over this presentation. And the first one is the front end. The front end is just basically what you see, what the user sees on an application. The database is, well, like all the data that is being stored on the application that we're going to create. CRUD operations is just basically the fact that you can create, delete, update all the data on the application itself. You have components, which are basically reusable elements that you can use across the application. You have AI and LLM, which I think at this point most of us are aware with it, but just artificial intelligence, large language models, and then API integrations, which is basically like a communication layer between services and just to interact with their data in our application. We have authentication, the backend. The backend is just basically everything that has to do with the application on the data side, right? So logic, functions, database connections, etc. And then we have the deployment. Deployment is just having the application out there for everyone to actually see it and access it. Now we have those out of the way. Is there any questions on this one specifically? Good? All right. So now that we have that out of the way, this is the actual stack that we're going to be using today. So today we're going to be using V0. V0 uses Nest.js, Shadcn UI, and Vercel. Vercel is for the deployments, Shadcn is for the components, Nest.js is the actual framework that is being used to develop the application, and V0 is the platform that we're going to be using today. And on the right side, we have the third-party applications and services that we're going to be implementing in this time around. So today we're going to be using Spotify, Grok, Figma, and then Supabase. Yeah, so from your perspective, you only need to have a Spotify developer account, which we can go over after starting. But yeah, so you only need that one and then the Vercel account. Those two only. The other integrations with Grok and Supabase, that will be built into V0. And then what are we building? So this is the fun part. We are building, this was actually a hard one because there's many things that we can build, right? So I actually had to think about what would be easy and good enough for the time that we have today. So we're building a simple application that you can create playlists with AI, just saying what the mood is for you. Hey, I want to listen to a specific thing, and then it will create a playlist based on where you're feeling at the moment. And then you can just access that playlist, and that's basically it. So let's build. The first thing you guys want to have, for those following along, is going into v0.com. .app, actually, they changed the URL. v0.app, and here, this is what you're going to see right away. So first off, you don't need an account to get started right away. At some point, it's going to prompt you to create the account, but you don't need it right away. Now, the other thing I want to mention is that this is actually launch week for V0. So what that means for us is that there's a lot of things that are going to be coming this week for V0, so stay tuned on that. And then the other part is that everyone has a $20 credit today to actually access the platform and test it without having to pay anything. This actually goes a long way. I've been testing how far you can go with $20, and I can tell you, like, it goes a long way. So with that in mind, we can just get started. So basically, I'm gonna put this here. If I can just type, and then we're basically gonna ask V0 what to build, right? So in this case, I have a somewhat of a prompt here, but we can just wing it a little bit. So we have let's build an AI-powered music playlist creator using the Spotify API. The user will be entering a prompt to create. I'm explaining what I want the user to do, right? So to create the playlist. Sample, make a playlist. Bear with me here. For getting logged in. So basically, I'm telling it, okay, so let's build an AI-powered music app using Spotify API. We want to be as specific as possible. And then we're going to create a feature where the user can enter the prompt to create their own playlist, and then the sample on how it will be, so to speak. And then we'll just do also for the AI integration, for the prompt, you can use Grok, which is the AI provider. This is the one being used in Twitter, by the way, or X. The database, you can use Supabase, which is the provider that I mentioned before for the database. Now, I want to mention this part because V0 actually attempts to do a lot in the background for you. So here, I just want to make sure we keep it simple. Yeah, like, to be honest, like the typos, don't worry too much about it. The LLM will actually read it through and parse it and actually try to guess what it says. So let's keep it, huh? Zoom in? Oh, sorry. Oops. Is it better that way? All right. Let's keep it simple. No authentication. Flow for now, which is fine. And then we also should have a home page, which should show all the created playlists, right? You should also be able to delete them. And that should be enough for what we need to actually get started. So again, we need to be as specific as possible. In this case, we're trying to say like exactly what we want to build in our own words, right? So let's build an AI-powered music application that uses the Spotify API. The user will enter the prompt of what they want to do for the playlist. Example, make a playlist for vibe coding and getting locked in. For the prompt, you can use Grok, right? For the database, you can use Supabase. And let's keep it simple. No authentication for now. Also should have a home page where it should show the created playlist, and you should also be able to delete them, right? This is our prompt as we thought about it from our minds. So one cool thing that they have implemented recently, actually, is the fact that you can enhance the prompt. So even if you give it like a really vague prompt, they actually attempt in the background to make it clearer so the AI that parses the whole thing actually understands better. So in this case, I'm just gonna enhance it. We're gonna wait a little bit, and the AI is actually reading the whole thing, and I rewrote it, right? The same thing, basically the same core concept that what I explained, but in a way that V0 can understand it way better. So in this case, I'm just gonna hit send, and basically V0 is gonna cook in the background. The way V0 is built in the background is that you can't, like, it chooses the agent, the model that it needs to use based on the task that it's creating, right? So this is what is called a composite model, where it chooses the actual agent, the model that it needs to use for the agent itself, and that way you don't need to choose it yourself. Now, in this case, I really like to see like what it thinks about where it creates the whole thing, right? So this is really a really good tool for you guys to actually understand where the AI is actually going as far as the thought process goes, right? So it says, hey, I have to do set it up now. Now that the user set up the prompt, and I need to set up the database because they're going to use the database, right? So in this case, it's actually prompting me to create a database with Supabase, which I'm going to go ahead and hit create. And it's basically going to connect with the Supabase provider. Tab, and then you'll prompt me to create the account. So here, you can change the API. For those technical folks, you can say the API prefix, but we don't need to do that right now. We have free plan selected for this. This, you should see it actually be able to click it. I don't, because I already did it before. But yeah, so I'm just gonna close it now, and then we can skip it. We can connect it later. I'm not going to think about the actual code base. It's creating the database schema. This is going to be on the background of things where the code is going to live. It's just basically telling the application, hey, when you load, this is the structure that we're going to have for the actual data that it's going to be pulling from when the database is connected. So it's getting the design inspiration from the web. So you guys noticed I said we were going to use Figma, but for this time around, I decided to just go straight to it, just to show for people that are not designers in this group, you can also create something from zero without having an actual design in place. So basically, V0 takes all the information that you feed it into it, and then processes everything and gets a design that might be better for your use case. Here it's going to build everything. This is actual code that is being created in the background. If I open this, I'm going to see the code being added. And this is what an engineer will see also on their local machine if they were actually creating themselves. I do this all the time. I open the code here just to understand what it's doing. You don't really have to, but it's cool. So yeah, so it's creating the structure. Here is building the homepage. It already created the task for us to actually create the application. Now this is a little bit of a wild use case, right? So you usually don't want to one-shot the whole thing, try to make the application in one go. But I did it just in purpose to actually see what it does. In this case, it's actually prompting to install Grok, which is, again, the AI provider. I'm just going to hit create. It's going to do the same thing for you guys. It's going to open a new tab. It's going to prompt you to save the new API key. But again, in this case, I already have one. It's just going to hit 5 days. And then it's going to continue. Hey, I connected with Grok. Cool. Now it's getting all the API information from Grok directly. In the background, Vercel, they did what they called the AI SDK, which is basically like a standard for TypeScript and React.js, a way for you to implement actual AI integrations using a normal standard process. Again, this is more on the technical side, but it's good to know. While we're at this, I already mentioned React.js. And it's interesting because to me, the other reason I chose V0 specifically for this talk is that V0, Vercel, the company, the parent company, they are built, they have Nest.js, they have the AI SDK, they have all these libraries that you can use today. But the reason I usually follow in what they do is that the chief of product of Vercel, he used to be the design engineer, the director of the React library that includes React Native and everything like that. So, they already have all the contents they need to actually do the implementation as they should. And while this cooks, um, yeah, so that's a fun fact about that is that they also implemented the image API on the React team, and the server, there's servers functions that come from React now. That's for non-technical folks, it's just a way for you to connect directly with the server without having to actually write server code. They also build the core for that on the React team. So now it's looking for the Spotify integration. Here we don't have a way to connect it directly because they're not a partner integration with V0, but it's smart enough to know that the structure of the Spotify API is a certain way because they already did the browsing on the web. So it browsed the web, looked for that information, and now it's coming back and filling up the whole code with it.
Is it going through like an error, like creating errors, and it goes back and does it?
It does. So you're gonna see across this whole presentation that I am highly likely to go through a specific error at some point, and we're gonna have to click fix with V0. It's gonna be smart enough to know where the error is, or at least most of the time. The things with this AI coding tools is that sometimes can be a hit or miss, but most of the time they're pretty good. Now for the V0 itself, what they did is that since they are the actual core creator of Next.js, which is a framework that is being used across. Next.js is being used in Grok, XAI, a lot of these companies, Claude, is that all the errors that they get from Next.js, they already know because they built it, right? So they get all the errors that they have and they feed it back to V0 and say, hey, the user got this specific error that we know what it is, so attempt to fix it. So that's pretty cool. So now it says it did most of the tasks, so we'll see. Yeah, it generates it uses Grok, that's fine, I get it. So basically it's just telling me, oh, if you don't have Grok installed, just make sure that the API key is there, which I'll show you guys how to add it, if anything. Oh, this is important. So you see, here, as I mentioned before, it doesn't have the actual Spotify integration with V0 itself. And I did this on purpose because it's highly likely that you'll come across, if you're using V0, an API that is not going to be here, right? So the way you do this is that you go to the Spotify developer docs, and this will be the same process for any API provider out there. So in this case, you guys can go to developer.spotify.com, and then you click on login. It's going to ask you to log in with OAuth or whichever authentication provider that you guys use. In this case, I'm going to use Google. I don't have an account. All right, so let's continue. Facebook then. I know. You know what? I think I'm signing in a different browser actually. I'm not gonna add my Facebook credentials here. But yeah, so while this opens, basically you're gonna open the Spotify dashboard, and then you're gonna see an actual API key in there. Developer, yep. So here, I'm already logged in. So we'll go to the dashboard. This is what you're gonna see when you go in. You're probably likely not gonna see any of this. So for the sake of this demo, I'm just gonna create a new app and say, hey, five days live. And then we do a simple description, AI powered, why not? Music, playlist, creation, app. And then the website. This is important. Well, in this case, it doesn't matter, but for the redirect URI, it always requires it. And then in this case, we can do, where is it? Here. We click on this link, and then it opens the actual site that we just created right now in a different tab. What this will do is that it will actually get the URL of that direct web render that it's rendering the content on. And I'm gonna paste it here, and then that's my, you know.
Where did you get that?
Oh, sorry. You open here on this button here. It would open separately, and then you can it's just I know my shortcuts, but basically you go to a URL bar and copy the URL. And then we're going back to the Spotify dashboard. I paste it here. I select Web API. In your case, you can select whichever API, playback, ads, iOS, whichever. In this case, I'm only gonna choose web because that's what we're doing right now. We're gonna be only using it on our website. So you just hit save here, and then you get a client ID. This client ID we're gonna feed into V0. So copy, go back to V0 here, and then I'm gonna see, hey, I had a Spotify client ID. So I just hit here, API key, save, boom, we connect to Spotify. Now, the next one that we need to get is a secret. So this one, as the name implies, is secret. Don't share it anywhere, don't commit it in repositories. It's a bad thing. If you do that, people can actually use your API and you'll feel that in your pocket. So, yep, next thing, we added the API. It already knows that we added it. So it's gonna load in the background. And another cool thing that I recently found out is that everything that you see here is a custom render that we're self-built. This render is gonna go away at some point. They're gonna follow a VM approach, virtual machine. What that means is that we can all of a sudden run any type of environment. That might include React Native at some point, just saying. Yeah, so we already have the app that it created. And basically we can just browse around. This is the UI that I created. It's not as good, to be honest, but at least it's something that we have already. Now, the data set that it has here, it's pulling from a local file that I created with mock data, so it's not real data. Now for this, I'm gonna say, hey, connect Supabase for the database, please. Please. And then it's gonna come back and say, hey, I need to connect with Supabase. Again, I already have one before, so I'm just gonna click here. But in your case, you're gonna hit create, it's gonna open a new tab, you hit save, and then it's gonna go back. So try run. And then it's connected. So, oh, it's, there we go. This? Oh, so you guys see well in the back or like this? All right. Whoops. No. All right. So yeah, so we have the app that we created here. Again, the UI we can tweak later, but it's, we already have it. Cool. So now if I hit start creating here, let's cross our fingers. All right, so check that it connected to the Spotify API. This is actually live, guys. So we are already connected to an API. So now we create the actual playlist. So we're saying, hey, I am feeling creative. Create a playlist for me. Now, I'm not sure if this is gonna work on one shot, but let's see. Yeah, so basically it's gonna go back. And then, is this a playlist? Let's see. In Spotify. Okay. Oops. There we go. So yeah, so in the background is, oh, I removed it. It's creating the playlist, checking Spotify. What I want to confirm is they actually installed Grok in it. Because sometimes it will fail whenever it goes an AI provider. Do a playlist for a workout. Yeah, it's highly likely that's connected to Grok. So everything that is happening here is already from Grok directly, which is, again, the AI provider. Um, Now, since before we said, hey, don't do any actual database connection, just know that we're using Supabase, but don't do anything. This is not gonna be saved in our database. So if I go back home, it's not gonna be here. So I'm gonna say, okay, cool. Can you please connect everything with the database and make it work? For this demo, I'm using really vague prompts, right? I just wanna, this is really on the edge, but I just wanna show you guys that you actually can, write as you're thinking. So you don't have to be really descriptive of everything, although it helps a lot. You don't really have to. So now it's creating everything. All right, it read all the files. Says, okay, now I understand everything. Now let's go and actually connect the database. So here is actually doing the connection. Again, all the code that is shown here is cool. That is actually like it is real code. This is not placeholder like a loop or anything. This is actually the code that is being added. And now it's checking its own work. So basically, again, the composite model architecture means that it chooses the model that it needs for doing specific tasks. So here's it reviewed the work. If I open it, I'll say, hey, yeah, I'm adjusting my approach to better understand the existing code. This is likely for files that were existing already. So it's creating. Now, one thing I want to note is that for AI, and this goes across the board, for AI coding tools, try to make sure to include only the context you need for every interaction that you have, because it will use a lot of what they call tokens, which is basically what they parse to communicate and process the information with the model back and forth. Every token actually costs you, right? Or whatever plan that you're on. So make sure to try to include only the information that you need to include. So in this case, I'm gonna show how in here in a couple minutes, but just to throw it out there. Now, with that in mind, that includes also generating images. So here, I have purposely disabled it, generating the images, and so it's not gonna consume the tokens for generating images. Now, if I were to turn it on, it will actually create the images for the playlist and wherever else you will see normal images. Okay, cool. This is actually working. I know already because the last time I actually tried the Supabase connection specifically, I had added playlists here, but let's see if it actually deletes them. So, okay, so I deleted one. Apparently deleted one, all of them. So let's see. Yep, so if I refresh here, it should not show. All right, cool. So that's actually us connecting with the database and deleting, data from the database. That's cool. Super excited there because the last time I played it, I had a little back and forth. All right, so now if I go and create my first playlist, let's see if the actual integration with Grok and Spotify works. So again, I'm getting tired of this ones, but oh, okay, cool. 90s nostalgia road trip. Let's just do that one. So here, it would connect with Grok, and then the message that is sent here, Grok will parse it in the background and say, okay, the user asked me for a 90s nostalgia road trip, right? It will think about that, and then will create it in a way that Spotify understands. That includes mood, things that Spotify actually, I don't remember the whole thing, but Spotify actually has parameters that you can pass through the API that it understands what you're saying. And then it returns the list of songs with that. So now it's saved apparently. So let's see if I open Spotify here. All right, so I opened Spotify directly. So let's see if it also saved it in the database instead of having me going back here. Yep, okay, cool. So it's on the database. Now, again, if I hit here, I'm pretty sure it won't do nothing. All right, cool. So what we can do in this case, nothing won't serve us anything, right? So what we can do here is that we can go back to the design mode here, and then a cool thing that we can do is that we can point wherever we can edit, right? So in this case, I'm gonna go here. Again, keeping the contextual part in mind, not to burn many tokens. Otherwise, it will have to go through all the files and check where the code is, right? In this case, I'm saying, okay, this button should open another page, right? Let's say page, mysite.com/ okay, let's just say playlist, right? This will be simple. So it will go to another page with playlists, and it will have the actual playlist, the actual songs that are on that playlist. Okay. Songs from that playlist. And again, we hit send. As I said before, I select this button, so it will go to whatever that definition is, and actually attempt to do the connection with the database. So here what it should do is that in the database, and we can confirm this if I go to Subbase here, while this builds, I go to this one. This is the actual database that we created, that we're interacting with, and I can go here, and then we see the databases. Yep, here. And this is, yeah, 90s highway rewind. This is the actual data, right? So if I go back to V0, I have updated the button to navigate to the new playlist ID. Basically here what it's saying is that it will get the ID of the item that is generated, and it will add it to the page that it creates. That way when it navigates there, it already knows what data I should pull from the database. That's a technical explanation there. All right, so if I go here, view playlist, hey, all right, so I am here. I don't see songs though. So let's do this work very well, but I don't see the songs. Now, the things that you're gonna notice with most of these AI tools is that sometimes you will have events like this. In this case, was really good because we didn't have any upfront error, right? An important thing is to do your research and know what to ask it, because that way it's not gonna throw a lot of errors, right? But in this case, it didn't do a lot of errors. In the past, I tried a couple different demos similar to this, not exactly this one, but I had two errors. One, which was the most prominent one, was the connection with Grok, because the integration that it did in the background on the technical side with the AI SDK wasn't the most optimal one, and it was using an old model called Grok Beta, so that one is not working. I'm technical, so I had to, I tried to not look at the code at all, so I did that over and over, and I was like, oh, there's no way. So I look at the code, and it was actually that. It was using the wrong model. But yeah, all right, so if I open here, playlist, there's no songs. Let's see, let's go back. Say, hey, when creating the playlist, I don't, it seems it's not creating songs. Let's check Subbase real quick. Your database is your friend, so if you have access to it, you can actually see what's going on. So here, we don't see any song being added to the database. If I go back to V0, I say the same thing I was saying before. Hey, when I'm creating the playlist, it creates the playlist, but it seems like it's not creating any songs at all. Let's do this. So here I'll go back to the code. All right, I can see the issue now. And then we'll go back and attempt to fix it. So it's a lot of information to hold in its memory. So sometimes the context window might be a little weird, which is basically like the things that it remembers. Um, so that's why sometimes it will sort of forget what to ask for. Now that reminds me, like if you are happy, and this is more on the technical side again, but if you're happy with the implementation that it did already, and you don't want it to touch anything there, you can go in here and say, hey, log this folder, and what this will do is that it won't fit into the context of the AI. The AI will say, okay, this folder is logged. I don't need to read it at all. So it will just skip it altogether. So here, I'm just going to go unlock again because I don't want that. Um, view playlist. Okay. And no tracks. Okay, cool. So now if I start creating, let's see. One more. Do one more and then one more after this one. If it doesn't work, I'm gonna show you guys like literally like a demo of this working. That I can even share that one actually, the conversation with you guys, so you can use this reference. That's another thing. If you have V0, you're using V0 or any tool like Lovable, they have similar features. You can actually share what you see here, and then the people you share it with, they're gonna be able to see the whole conversation that you go through here. So that's good for, if you have a technical team and you're creating the thing yourself, you're saying, hey, nothing's working, check it out. And then they will go back to V0 and see the conversation, and they'll say, okay, yeah, you messed up here, man. Let's see the code real quick, see how it works. Okay, this is the reason, and then you can continue your way. So that's a cool way to integrate, that workflow. All right, so it says it saved it. So let's go back to the subbase and say, all right, it's here. I see tracks, so this is new. Let's see, let's go back. Tracks are songs, by the way. If I go back here, whoop, back to home. All right, all right, cool. And then here are the songs. All right, awesome, we got it. All right, so this is actually super nice to actually see it so fast. The implementation that we did on the logical side of things, this was the feature set, right? Now, I wanted to cover some, I only have 5 minutes, but I wanted to cover some parts on the design side as well, which basically the UI, for example, I don't like the UI. So if I go back to the design tab here, what I did before, I can point to any element here, and I can go here and change things, right? The font size, the colors, things like that. What this will do in the background is that it will actually edit the code here, and it will save it for you. So if I go here, for example, and one more, here, and I change that color, I want it, I don't know, let's say red, yeah. So red, save it. It will save the changes, and then I refresh this, it would still have it. Now the cool part about this is that you can go back to a chat and say, hey, I changed this text to red. That is going to be my primary brand for the whole application. Now that it knows that it's red, change it everywhere, and it's going to go to wherever it's using that color and change it. So, things like that you can do. Now, the other part that I wanted to cover, this is more on the technical side, but I think it's really important, is the connections. You can connect it to GitHub and connect it to a specific branch in GitHub. And what that means for you, and if you have a technical team, is that you can collaborate together, right? So you can have a specific branch for you to bytecode and break things and just experiment ideas and things like that. And then when you're done and you're feeling good about it, you can tell your engineers and say, hey, let's just merge this thing together and actually put it to production. Now, with this in mind, like if you want to do landing pages and things like that, it's really good for you to like do it alone with no technical requirement. Now, the other part is that you can also publish this site on the web. If I hit publish, I'll publish to production. I'm not going to go for the time, but you publish to production and you have a URL already. And this is an actual deployment using React, Nest.js, the actual like good stack that everyone uses right now. So yeah, so this is just basically a quick overview of how to use V0. I'm taking questions now, so.
So, Mike,
Yeah.
so if you were going to create something like a Kubernetes, kind of crazy, right? And you're going to take
Real quick, for anyone asking questions, we have a nice microphone right here. So
Oh, yes. Thank you, Grant.
Right on the live stream too.
So he's asking like integrations with Kubernetes and containerized applications. What that means for non-technical folks here is that basically you can take any application that uses any technology that people use for applications, and you can deploy it all together in a single container, right? And that builds the application and service to the web. And the reason that's cool is that anyone who uses the container don't have to replicate the same development environment on their computer. So you get things going fast. Yes, you can do that. So here, I can start creating the application in V0. I can do it all myself here. Now, the only thing that would be different for you is that I wouldn't be able to publish. I can publish here to Vercel, but if you have your own container, you can either push it to GitHub here directly on the repository, and then whatever workflow you have in GitHub, it would actually publish in the.
So the question is, if I can ask, so crazy, but that kind of crazy idea of developing non-coder CRM with ERP and blah, blah, and all integration platform, and then going out the avenue of one rep testing.
Yeah.
So I get something and you put it there and then get it over together. Is Verso as good as Replit for that reality?
Let me do a simple. Vercel V0, they develop their UI features in V0.
Right.
So get that. They do like, every UI feature that they have in V0 right now is a PM designer just vibe coding it and passing it to engineering teams.
But for back office.
And yeah, so we'll be asking questions up over here. So
Yeah.
we'll move on to the next
All right.
questions. Thank you.
Great presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask about life cycle management for a complex application. Clearly, this looks like a good place to start. But say I want to publish it so that as much as possible, and definitely the database, run on my private equipment. So I'm going to write it here. I'm going to export the whole thing to my private server, run it and collect the data there. But then in the life cycle, you've got component upgrades. You've got changes that you want to make. I'd want to come back here to make those changes, and I'd want this system to handle library upgrades and reintegrate everything so it still works, so that when I export it back to my private server, it doesn't break everything that's already there.
Okay, that's good. So you can connect it. The short answer is you can. The long answer is it depends on your stack. If you're using Nest.js, for example, you can do it right away. Even if it's your code is really complex, it's gonna take some adaptation from the technical side of things to make it look in V0, but I've done it before also. Now, with that in mind, I wouldn't, and this goes in general, I wouldn't use V0 for a complex application as what I do here, I just go straight to production and ship features. That's cool for the UI side, but on the database side, I would, just be aware that there are security things that you need to keep in mind. It's really good for prototyping. It's really good for connecting with data like this. But if you're interacting with a database, make sure it's not in production. That's one thing that I wanted to cover.
Where do we go for that?
For
A complex, multi-layered application with high security and sensitive data.
I mean, you can do it here. You can integrate it here. Again, it depends on the tech stack. If you're using SAS, you can do it here. But you would do your own staging database that you will connect V0 with, right? Everything that you have locally in your code, it can be used here because the environment variables and everything, it's already in the code that you have. This includes if you don't have the database integrated into V0, like Supabase, for example, any provider that you have, whether it's external, you can use it here as well. It just depends on how your setup is.
Including a local Postgres?
Including like a local Postgres, no.
Why not?
Because V0 is not a VM, but they're working on that though.
All right, thank you.
No problem.
And we'll have two more questions, two more people asking questions, and then we'll move on to the next speaker. Amazing, thank you. Cool.
Sweet, great presentation so far. Really
Thank you.
appreciate it. I was wondering about V0 and how it actually works under the hood. Is it just an LLM with tool calls? You mentioned it can use different LLMs. Also, do they do any like fine tuning or creating their own models? Like, How does it work? How does it differ from other coding agents?
Yes. That's the answer to everything. So the way they work right now, the way they started working is that you could choose your own model, and then that changed. Right now, we only see the agent mode, right? So what that means for us is, again, composition model. I always have a hard time there. A composition model, which essentially means that V0 picks and chooses the model that you need to use based on the task that you need to do, right? So that's basically how it works.
So it can switch between like an OpenAI model,
Yes.
Anthropic model.
You won't
et cetera.
see right now any like mention of those on the UI itself, but I'm pretty sure like they use different things. Now they do fine tune their own or train their own models as well based on libraries and everything that they have.
Yeah, because they have access to Next. I guess they don't have access to the actual code, but I'm sure they have some like
Yes.
coding data they can basically fine tune the models on top of.
Yes. So for you guys, Next.js, Chat.cn, Vercel, all those things from the same company. So they already have the data that they built already. Documentation, everything, including Chat.cn, which is a component library. And what that does for us and for their models is that everything is already like as good as it should be. But
Awesome, appreciate it.
yeah, no problem.
So we've seen just how great your design is from the event posters and all that. I would be really curious about hearing a little bit at 10,000 foot view of your design process. I feel like a lot of times
okay. Yeah.
stuff looks AI generated. How do you break that mold?
I'll do that one real quick here, but basically what you need to keep in mind is that our design, this is actually the design that I wanted to cover, but there were so many complex, topics that we're covering here that I didn't want to distract everyone. But this is the actual design that I did specifically for this workshop. Basically, I create a new playlist. This is the actual, suggestions. This me writing. I send it, I create a playlist, I create it. Now, if I were to implement this in V0 or any tool out there, in V0's case or Lovable or anything like that, I would just literally just screenshot it, right? And then just paste it to V0, a couple screens. Again, you can do sort of like a one-shot thing, but I would suggest doing screen by screen or maybe even component by component. But I'll just screenshot it, put it here and say, hey, this is the application that we have. This is the design that I have. Can you please like make it closer? And it would actually attempt to do it. You will still have back and forth with it, but it's actually pretty good at that. There's all the tools that you can connect directly with design tool like Figma, NCP, and things like that, that the actual code is more accurate to whatever the source of the design is.
Okay, no, thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. But yeah, so for that question specifically, for any process for design to engineering, just paste everything into, doesn't have to be V0. Like Claude Code, any AI coding tool out there, you can actually do the same thing. And it's literally, most of those concepts here that I showed today overlaps across different tools. So, just keep in mind it's a pattern that you have to learn over and over choosing different tools. And I think we have to set up for the other speaker. So thank you guys. I really hope you appreciate this.